Serious.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we've had a little bit of feedback. People wondering
who we are.
Yeah,
who are
these,
you?
Who are these people?
You're talking to me. What authority do you have? Yeah.
So we're kind of doing our Peter Parker radioactive spider bite, like how we got here kind of thing. We actually had a podcast going for 2019 called The Sky Launch Show, same name. And our background, gosh, who are we in kind of a really quick nutshell? You're...
Former corporate America.
Okay.
Went out of high school, went to college, got a degree in something I thought I was going to do. That was a waste, didn't do it. Went into the workforce, did that until I was about 30 and they downsized. And after that, I was done.
Yeah, let's see, and that done part, that's about where
we met.
We met. I'm come from a law enforcement background, did a lot of work on the defense industry, the business side of it, contracting, and worked for different companies, was active duty military for a short window of time. Darby and I met in that time frame, and we got together, and just a lot of really weird coincidences, circumstances that were involved in us coming together.
Synchronicity, if you want to call it.
Yeah, we loved each other a lot, but we kind of went, wow, there's something bigger going on here than just a marriage.
Two people coming together, getting married. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was it wasn't too long into our marriage. I wound up coming out of the military, got injured, and just a myriad of just really weird events brought what I thought was going to be my career to a really quick end. And it was like very unexpected. And so we found ourselves kind of going, what are we doing next? Well, Darby comes from a Catholic background. I came from a non-denominational Christian background. And after some time of me being angry at God because I didn't get to do what I wanted to do, we found ourselves in ministry. And a lot of what we both were looking for in our kind of former lives, we actually got all that satisfaction and all of that, like, you know, this is what you want to do with your life. We got it out of ministry. And so we're like, it's very interesting. We wound up, we did the children's stuff.
We've done every aspect you can think of serving in the church. We did it. Children's ministry, front of the house ministry, coffee ministry. He was the graphic designer for websites and all of their stuff ministry. I was their social media person ministry.
Yeah. Sound
team, worship team, securities team, team. We've done it.
We've done it. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. Marital counseling.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole 9 yards. And that was with a bunch of different churches. A bunch of different roles. We actually came from, and what was interesting, this was like, for about 7 years, we were part of a church launch in Utah. Fantastic people. It was probably the best iteration of like what you would think of as the mega church model, but not a ginormous church.
No, it was on a very smaller level.
But it was very friendly, very well done. But it was like the best iteration of that you could possibly think of. But there was something kind of missing. And Darby and I had a lot of talks about it, and we couldn't quite put our finger on what it was at the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had talked about it. We knew what it was
to a degree, and broached other people about what we knew it was, and I think they kind of knew what it was, but it was just something they weren't there. Yeah, they weren't seeing the things that Darby and I were seeing, and we didn't even have, I think, a really good formulation of what it was. That journey actually started when we knew that our time there was ending, and so we thought we were going to move to a little town in Texas. And the way the boss does things, he totally changed our direction, and we wound up coming to a really small town in southern Georgia. And we got here
2017.
So it's been 6 years. And we thought, we're going to dig down into a church and we're going to get going again, and we're just going to do the same old thing we've always done. And after a lot of prayer, he put it on pause. And it was we both kind of came to that conclusion. It was probably a couple of months.
No, it was the beginning of January. When we got here in October of 2017, by January, February of 2018, everything had halted. And God was delivering a message that we absolutely needed to dig into.
Yeah.
And that's when our journey into kind of where we are now started. We didn't know back then. I mean, we were getting all these things. We were being put in unique circumstances. We were getting all these things that it wasn't comfortable, and it wasn't something that we really wanted to deal with. But looking back, if we only knew then what we knew now, we did. We knew then what we needed to know now, and that is kind of the whole key of why we do what we do today.
Kind of like sometimes your biggest growth comes from a catalyst, and the catalyst isn't always fun. It's not what you would sit down and go, this is how I'm going to write my story.
Nothing always looks the way you want it to.
Yeah, so we went through this weird set of circumstances. Well, the boss led us we needed to start visiting churches, but it wasn't visiting churches in the normal sense of like, I'm going to go, if you've ever heard the term church shopping. That wasn't what it was. Yeah. It was more like,
we weren't going to go put ourselves back into being involved. We were going to... we weren't going to visit churches because we were trying to find one to attend every Sunday. We were going to learn. We were in the Bible Belt. We were smack dab in the center of the Bible Belt, which runs from mid part of the East Coast down through the lower half of the southern United States. And everybody's heard of it. The Bible Belt. That means something.
Yeah.
And once we started going into the churches here in our little community, which we have to explain, we live in a small county of about 20-something thousand people, a city of about 7,000, and there was 186 churches on the books.
118 churches.
118 ministries, churches on record.
And so what he told us to do is go visit churches, and we thought initially, this will be no big deal. And then we were like, wow, after taking a couple of years and visiting about 50, 50? I think it was closer to 50 churches, we were like, okay. And each time we visited a church, he wanted us to take notes, and then just take notes on what we saw, and then talk about it and come to pray and kind of come to a conclusion. And it took this 2-year period to really kind of go, this is what he wants us to see. We were doing a Book of John study, then we got into a Book of Acts study, and it became very apparent that there were a lot of things that were in the first and second century church, first century church, if you're looking at the Book of Acts, that you don't see in the modern church. And there's a lot of things in the modern church that you don't see in the first century church. And to try to keep it as condensed as possible, it became very apparent that over thousands of years, the development of the church through the Catholic Church and into the Protestant Church, just things had gotten really kind of off track. There have been a lot of when in Rome, do what Romans do, capitulations to
tradition.
Non-church or pagan or whatever you want to call it. But there was a lot of capitulations made in the process of spreading the word, and it really got the church kind of
off track.
And by the 1600s, the Protestant movement pulled away from Catholicism with Martin Luther, and I don't know how much of the church history you're familiar with or even are interested in, but the Protestant church actually took a lot of that residue of Rome with them. Mm-hmm. And they unknowingly still are like
participants in that today.
And almost to have a death grip on that residue of Rome. And it's stuff that you really don't see in the book of Acts church. Mm-hmm. And we don't have to go into this doesn't have to be
that's an entire other video series, which at some point we will get into.
Yeah, there's a bunch of theological things. My background is Calvary Chapel, went to Liberty University for my theology degree, was very Tim LaHaye kind of like in my eschatology. Mm-hmm. So very rigid. And what the Lord did in that 2-year period of time was you need to back away from some of this stuff. And don't get so wrapped up in man's traditions, but start paying attention to what the book actually says.
His word.
Not necessarily the interpretations of men over time.
Yeah.
But look at the word and then look at the things that are going on. And how would you describe how that's informed us during COVID, Stan?
Oh, okay. How would I describe? No, you had actually a good statement when the beginning of, as you heard, COVID, Stan started.
Yeah.
We had, and we're not claiming we're prophetic, but there was a period of time that we were watching this do this, that we were going, there's something going on, and you had stated we needed to take a stand in regards to, are we going to live in fear, or how did you say it? Panic versus Passover.
Yeah.
Do we want to be afraid of everything, or do we want to listen to what God says, and He'll just lead us
through it?
He led lots of other people through the wilderness. Yeah. He can lead us through the wilderness, and He's been doing that the whole time.
And that was March of 2020 when all this stuff was really going on.
Yeah, but I'm talking like October of 2019.
Oh,
we were talking about weird stuff going on.
Because there was.
In the fall.
There was.
Hong Kong
riots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, things need to process here before they come back here. But yeah, I remember standing in our friends' we're going to have our friends on here, they're a hoot. But I remember standing in their kitchen, we were having this entire conversation. We knew something was happening, and then bam, right after Christmas,
it started.
The world locked down. And we were like, what the hell?
Yeah. And then by March, it was very, very apparent that they were pushing massive loads of fear on the public.
That's all it was.
And
don't leave your house. You're going to die. Don't go here. Don't breathe this. Put this on. Cover yourself. And remember all the videos of people in Walmart and they were wearing scuba gear? Oh my God.
Yeah. And even like when you go to like watch movies on Netflix, every
narrative was everywhere.
Yeah, every single like end of the world virus movie was suddenly on Netflix and Amazon Prime at once.
Right.
It's like, what?
It wasn't zombies anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it was zombies, but the zombies were attacked by the virus, some virus. We were like, oh, come on.
We were just like, man, this is really. We'd seen little bits and pieces of it in the past, but it was super heavy really quick. And so by March, the Lord had already been kind of bringing us down a road of
where are you going?
Yeah, some of the traditional stuff that the church does gets really kind of weird. And we were already looking at Easter and going, what is Easter and Ishtar versus... and that's another whole story.
Another entire video series we will get into.
Some of the holidays are kind of goofy if you really dig into them. But what we think of as Easter versus Passover? And if the Lord were to return, because everybody's waiting for Him to show up, which one do you think He's going to celebrate? And
we were like, He ain't going to be out there hunting Easter eggs with your kids on the church lawn.
And we were kind of like, okay, so we were looking into things like Pesach, which is the traditional term. Pesach for at least the best way that we know how to pronounce it. But that is Passover. And so not to be like, we're going to go the whole Jewish route, But the thing is there are some holidays that really are
Yeah.
traditional Christian holidays that we don't even celebrate anymore. And then
No.
we do celebrate a lot of stuff, which is
Crap.
yeah.
Crap.
And we kind of wonder why
Yeah.
this little car of the church doesn't drive very well. And
Yeah.
it's because we're not doing.
What we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
We've deviated so far from the word.
instead of changing the oil, we're trying to replace the blinker fluid. Is the best way to kind of describe it. But so anyway,
We digress.
where were we? Where we were in March
You pulled a knee.
2020 was Panic or Passover.
Yeah.
And we chose Passover.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually celebrated Passover, but then we really went, you know what? We are going to live our life like it's the kingdom right now, and we're just going to let this pass over us. Whatever it is that we're watching, man, we're just not going to play.
Yeah.
Just
We
not
can't
going to
buy-
do
we
it.
couldn't- We chose not to buy into it. We chose not to fall into the crowd of, I don't know the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
We made the choice to just listen to the still small voice of God going, I'm leading you through this. I promise you I'm not going to let anything happen to you that you won't be able to handle, or I won't be able to
Take care
pull
of it,
you
yeah.
through. And here we are,
Yeah.
2023, and we're here to teach you things.
And
Things.
there was a
Stuff and things.
bunch of weird rabbit holes that he had us go down. Right now, you're seeing a lot of people go down a lot of weird rabbit holes, and what we're finding out is that what used to be conspiracy theory is more like factual theory.
Oh my God, have you seen? There's a meme. There's a meme out there that says, I'm not bragging, but the conspiracy theorists are up 37-0. And I laugh, but I'm like,
Oh my God.
we are.
But some of the rabbit holes that he brought Darby and I down during that time period, I say, Darby, you're like right next to me.
That's me.
This is Brad's brain on drugs. But anyway.
No, you can afford the drugs. You can't afford the eggs.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah, so this is Brad's brain on eggs.
On eggs.
I don't know.
Because
I don't know where I'm going with any of this.
expensive.
But
It's okay.
I'm old. There goes my brain again.
We made the choice to listen to God. That's basically, and we're here helping you.
Yeah, and we're oh, this is so terrible.
It's not terrible.
Don't get old. I'm telling you, kids. It's just listen to old people, but don't get old. We went through all of this stuff. Oh, the conspiracy theory thing. So the rabbit hole that he had us go down was some really weird stuff on like, okay, well, if you had to rebuild a community, what would that look like? And so we're like, that's weird. We're reading through all this Old Testament stuff and just all of these things about if you had to like start over, start thinking about that. In the same way that he told us to visit the churches and start writing down notes, we were kind of like, okay, we don't know quite where this is going. And some of this stuff showed up in 2018. There were big chunks of it that showed up in 2018, and we were like,
way ahead of
we don't know
time, I guess you would say. Yeah.
what the hell any of this means. But we had like copious notebooks on this stuff, and then COVID stand happened, and then it circled back around, and we were like, okay, weird. There's going to be, I will tell you this, that there's going to be a period of time where I think we're going to have to really try to rebuild kids as much as possible. Right now there's a huge attack on children, and in multiple formats. And we can go down the physical, sexual, slavery, abuse angle that we're all starting to become more aware of, and it's like really nasty, super nasty.
Yeah.
And I used to be kind of in the camp of, is this really real? And now I'm like, holy shit.
Super real.
This is really scary. Well, it's not just that. The kids that aren't wrapped up into that, they're really trying to warp who they are to a point where they will be completely slaves.
Yeah.
Completely unable to be rugged individuals, function society. And so there's going to come a period of time where kind of Second Chronicles 20, it's either 20 or 22, the boss is going to bring an end to all of the wackadoodle garbage that the bad guys are doing. But you were really going to have to focus on rebuilding. And so that's kind of who we are, and then why we are, and now what
we're doing.
Yeah, what the Lord really wants
called
us to do. And so a big part of this is if you're out there and you're watching us and you're going, what the F is going on? That's kind of the task that he gave us over the last, I would say, 6 years of figure this stuff out. If the church is a car and the car ain't working, why ain't it working? And because you're going to need it to function really, really well in a pretty quick amount of time. And so if there's garbage that doesn't need to be in there, get it out. If there's things that haven't been working for a long time, get them fixed. And so some of the fundamental things that you use, that all people, when you go to church, you think, man, I want my church to be this, or I really wish it could be that. And then there's that idea that we have in our heads versus the reality of what is happening. And all I can say is this: we're all going to have to let go of certain key pillars of what we think a church is. And the building, the money, the way it's been. There's some of this stuff that really, when you get into the Old Testament, you go, is it biblical, or is it using scripture to justify
their means?
What you want to do. And that's really I think what has been happening. And even really good pastors, good people,
they just get caught up.
They just get caught up into it. And I think that there's going to come a time where you're just not going to be able to afford it anymore. Kind of like eggs.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to go, okay, now that that's off the table, what do we do? And I think that that's actually the point when, and this is what the boss is doing, is he's going to take the power that's on high, like we think of all of these really important, powerful people, and that they're screwing it up so bad.
Oh my God.
That power is going to come down to us.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to have to be ready to assume that authority in our own communities, in our own families, our own communities, our own towns and counties. That power is going to start to come down. And people at the top and people at the bottom that are not serious, they're just going to get moved out of the way.
Yeah.
And
excuse me. Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's people like us, but I think the Lord is giving a message to people like us that we're supposed to get out to people like you. And those new leaders, they're out here.
Yeah.
They're out here amongst us. They just don't know who they are yet. But you're going to have to be a leader, you have to start to think like a leader. And that's
where we're building. If you had, like the question was broached earlier, if you had to start over, you had to start from the beginning, because things as we know it, and we're watching it happen in real time. Right. We can actually talk about this and go, things as we've always known it are not going to be that. We're seeing it now. Today, 2023, we can look back and look at things just 10 years ago that are nothing like it is now. And we're watching it happen. And there are groups of us who are literally watching it happen and going, well, you've got to get back to basics. You've got to get back to simplicity, because if you're relying on all these other things, that's when you are just going to get moved into this herd of people that are just going to be stuck in the slave mentality, and they're just the sheepling themselves into the slaughterhouse. And then you have the groups of people who are like, I'm not going to let this happen to me or my family, and we need to start building our communities, building groups of people who are not going to let the world as we know it become the end of us.
Yeah, and that's really the other thing too, is that I think we all need to recognize that the end times, as they've been taught to us, kids were there. It's like the church is running around going, well, there's going to be this 7-year period in the future, and all of these things are going to happen, and
The aliens are going to come down and sweep everybody up.
There's going to be all kinds of weird stuff. This is all I got to say. There's going to be all kinds of weird stuff. I will tell you that a lot of our modern understanding of Revelations and the end times and rapture theology and was really informed by Jesuits in the 1600s. Did not.
You know where my information of the end times were?
Yeah.
Kirk Cameron movies in the 90s
And that's what
PBS.
That's what I'm actually talking about, is that
Oh my God.
that idea that we all commonly have, that actually came from the Jesuits in the 1600s, who were trying to keep people from pulling the thread of the part that the Catholic Church was playing in all this stuff. When the Protestants came away, there's a lot of Protestants that went, wow, there's really something wrong with the Catholic Church, and they identified the Catholic Church specifically as like the devil kind of thing. And so the Jesuits, in trying to do a PR move, went, no, all this end time stuff that you're looking at, that's going to be far away off in the future. And a lot of our concepts of what we think of the end times actually come from that. And they have developed over 400 years into something that...
Well, every generation thinks it's going to be far off in the future.
Yeah.
And
And
guess what? We're
the future.
We're the future.
And so, and it's not as compressed or as fast or as weird as they've made it out to be. It's kind of like this. If the church right now is like a man who's holding an empty glass, and he's really just wanting this glass of water to be full so that he can drink it because he's really thirsty. And he's sitting with his glass in a dinghy in the middle of Lake Tahoe. And literally all he has to do to fill up his glass is just take it and stick it in the lake and drink some fresh water. That's the church's view on Revelations. It's literally happening all around us. And because people want it to come in the way that they want to recognize it, they don't see that it's happening all around them. I will tell you this.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, though. The whole end times thing, it's not the end for God's kids. It is the end for them.
Yeah.
The people that are doing all of this, he does say that every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess. He's going to rule the world with an iron rod. But he is a good guy. But if these people that are playing all these games, they're not going to make it through this.
No, and we can tie this all into current events. I mean, I hate to be like that, but you have to be of intellectual thought in mind and knowledge and researching. We're watching that happen, and we're watching that happen in real time.
Wake up,
You
kids.
cannot see what is going on around you. You cannot see the stories and the reports and hear people talking everywhere about my aunt, my cousin, my sister, my grandpa, my neighbor, young, old, too many young, that are just suddenly, unexpectedly. I don't know what happened, but we were having lunch yesterday, and then today, you cannot look at that and not think that is
Far off in the future.
far off in the future. Far off in the. I think it's literally happening, and we're the witness, because I think we're supposed to be a witness to this, and we're witnessing it.
And the reason is not because this is the end, and this is, like I said, it's the end for the bad guys.
Yeah.
It's not the end for God's kids. There's actually, if you look at Revelations 19 going into 20, all throughout the Old Testament, Isaiah 65 has got some. There, if you're listening to the boss and you're really following him, we're going to go through a rough patch, and then it's going to be a fantastic time. And if you understand, if you go back to the book, you understand the Greek and the Hebrew, it's probably going to be even a lot longer than people think. There's been a lot of interpretations of certain words, like thousand year reign. It's not even years. It's a word called dome, which means generations.
Yeah.
It could be the millennial reign of Christ, as they've translated that down into English. It could be as long as 20,000 years if you're reading the original text and you're understanding what it says. Because it actually, the parts where it talks about all that stuff, that actually translates all the way back to a lot of other promises that were made in the Old Testament. And those promises are very specific about what it says, 1,000 generations. Yeah. So
it's like
yeah.
And again, oh God, I really need to remember people's names and things. Who was the pastor, turn of the century? The Great Awakening.
Well, yeah. There's been actually a couple of...
The old guy, somebody got beat on the floor of the Senate with a
cane.
No,
that's...
Am I putting two different stories together?
Putting two different stories together. That was how the Civil War got going.
Okay, well...
Darby
gets a really good story.
Darby gets to a certain point in history, and then it's just all the same story.
All the same thing. But there was a pastor that was talking about how the Great Awakening is going to... And I really think that...
It's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah. So.
And they're two sides of the same coin, one and the same. One can't happen without the other. And
so you're going to see the enemies, and this is just my understanding of everything, but you're going to see the enemy's presence in this world dwindle down to almost nothing.
Yeah.
And his kids really need to understand how to rule and reign in his kingdom with him.
Yeah.
And that is what he is wanting us all to get ready for. Stop thinking about Babylon and how Babylon has done things. Come out of Babylon and start being a leader in his kingdom. Yeah. Because that's ultimately where we're all going to go.
Yeah.
And so, and
I think that's part and parcel of a lot of the stuff that you will hear from us is we will give you lots of news and information of things that are going on, but we are here to broach the subject of, hey, at some point we're all going to have to start this whole journey all over again with groups of people that are
around us
of like mind and thought and faith. And how do you do that? Well, maybe it's little bits and pieces of think of it as kind of like online school.
Yeah.
Without
or at least
going into debt.
Or at least a little bit of a mental challenge. Trying to egg you in the right direction, hopefully. One last thing. The same way that they flogged fear for COVID, Stan, to get everybody moving the direction they wanted to go. I'm just going to share this with you. It's something I've been keeping my ear to the ground on. They are starting the drum roll of fear concerning the future of the dollar. And I'm just going to give you a heads up. The dollar is going to fall apart. It's going to totally fall apart.
It's been tumbling for a while, but it's really...
Yeah, the petrodollar, as it's been propped up, is going to go away fast. And with it, a lot of the governmental apparatus that is all neatly balanced on top of the petrodollar is really in trouble. Mm-hmm. And so, but they are really trying to whip everybody into fear right now. And just like...
Oh my God, the news story you just showed me this morning.
Yeah, they're trying to whip everybody into fear so that they can lead you into the place where they want you to go. Kind of like what we talked about with the fear and then trying to lead people into the shots. Don't buy into it. Again, panic versus Passover. Or Passover versus... Oh my God! Is it panic or Passover? What are you going to do? And, excuse me, panic versus Passover.
We've been married 20 years and my brain melts into his brain and that's problematic.
So, half the time you're smarter than I am, so... But is it going to be...
If you heard that, write it down and send that to me in an email.
Okay. Yeah. Hold that over. Look at this letter.
On this date at this time, you said this.
No, it's panic versus Passover. You get to pick your future.
Yeah.
Your free will has a lot.
Free will.
Yeah.
You have to understand. Literally nobody has the right to put a gun to your head and can tell you how you need to think, how you need to feel, how you need to believe, what faith you need to have. That is your choice.
Yeah.
You make it. And when you do make it, because God forbid you have the right You can choose anything you want. You also have to live and deal with the circumstances and the consequences of that choice. So that's how it is.
If you want good consequences, well, start making
choose
some good
wisely,
decisions.
grasshopper.
And I think I've got to go get some work done. So I think we're gonna probably
work is crap. That's why we choose to do our own thing.
Well, I'm choosing to do some things for some other people to help them out. So, anywho, have a good one, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Welcome to my brain.
Oh my God, that's scary.
Casino, cleaned my pants and hung him out to dry. Drown the town of Reno, leave the lights on, let him die.